Do understand there's fans that don't want to buy $70 games. It's good, do that. But for me, I save up for them. I mean, yeah, you can, but I guess like the real question is, does every game deserve that $70? And I think there's a lot of games coming out these days that don't. And I don't think there's any criteria that can make that definitively worth it or not. I mean, I'm not crazy about the $70 price point in general, but assuming that like at this point it's a reality, it's happening. Like everyone is now doing it, even though I think it is unwarranted in most cases. But I think that if you're like, okay, well, it's the budget, the amount of the level of fidelity. Say that if it doesn't look like The Last of Us Part 2, it doesn't like it shouldn't be $70. It's like, okay, if that's your standard, then Tears of the Kingdom can't be $70. But Tears of the Kingdom is one of those games that like despite running at 720p 30 FPS on 6-year-old Android tablet hardware, it's such an incredible game where it's so clear that they did spend a lot of money on it and a lot of time and quality assurance and talented people working really, really hard with a very, very clear vision. It's like, well, if I'm gonna say that the really pretty game with the high budget and lots of effort put into it that plays like crap maybe might be worth $70 because they spent a lot of money on those performances, it's like, how is that consistent if I say, oh, but this Nintendo Switch game that's brilliantly designed and is kind of a tech miracle in its own right, even though it objectively looks kind of bad because it's the technical aspects of it are lacking, the art direction really picks up the slack for it, and it ends up looking great anyways. So I don't know, it's tough. Like, price point stuff is a difficult question these days, but I think that I love that games like this exist. You know, it's a $20 game that looks great still. Like, it's got a really great art style, and it's got its own vibe, and is well designed with probably a pretty small team. Like, I like that those games exist too, and it would be much more difficult for a game like this to exist if it had to be $70, you know? Like, if we were still in the world where, well, games cost this price no matter what, it doesn't matter what kind of game it is. Like, that used to be the world we lived in. There was plenty of games that probably should have cost $20, $30, which were full price. And it was only because it's like, well, I mean, of course the Home Alone game on Super Nintendo needs to be full price because it's a video game. Like, that was kind of the threshold, and I think video game pricing has moved to a different standing. Oh shit. Stance would probably be the way to say it. Like, now there's more variance in pricing, and there's a greater number of reasons why one might pick a specific price point for their game. But I think the biggest issue is price point is being correlated to budget too directly. So companies are getting it in their head that if they spent a lot of money on a game, then they can charge a lot for it, and then that's fine. Even if the game's broken, if the game doesn't hit quality standards, if the game doesn't have any kind of innovative design, if it's thrown together using processing headroom as opposed to good coding. Like, I don't know that we should be, oh shit, I don't know that we should be giving those games $70 just because it's like, well, I'm a fan of video games and this looks cool, so it's that. It's like, well, that doesn't mean it's okay that they're doing that though. Like if you paid $70 for a physical copy of Battlefield 2042, like, what did you actually pay for, you know? Like, I sort of just don't like seeing that happening either. But at the same time, like, again, I'm not saying physical games should go away or anything like that, but I think there's nuance to the concept of video game pricing and how publishers set price points for their games. So here's the concession that I'm willing to make. If the $70 price point is something that is inevitably going to be ubiquitous and soon, like, so if it's just going to be games are launching at $70 and that's sort of just how it is, which, I mean, You can say like, well, that's not going to happen. It's still only going to be special cases or big AAA releases, or it's like, well, I don't know. Like, we might be getting to the point that Focus Interactive games are launching at $70 just because they're like, well, I mean, why would we charge less if like this is how much people are paying for every video game, and they're just fine with it. The way it was with $60 quite a while back. I hope we don't ever get to that world, but if we do, I hope that the counterpoint is a much wider variance in price points for different games, so that we still get $20 games like this, but maybe we get some $40 games come out, some $50 games, and game publishers really think hard about how much their game is actually worth and price it appropriately. And how much it's worth isn't, like I said, it's not an easy question, but I think that they need to be honest with it. I think every publisher needs to be honest with themselves about what that answer actually is. Because if it's $30, don't charge $70 for your game. If it's free, like if it's, well, most of our monetization is probably going to be happening in our battle pass system, so we realistically, oh shit, the purchase of this product is not necessary. So we are kind of scamming people a little bit by charging for it at all, because you don't really get a lot of value out of this game unless you're buying the battle pass anyways. It's like, okay, well, maybe that game should be free to play then. Maybe Battlefield 2042 should not be a game that people had to pay for, you know? Like, I guess, sorry. New PlayStation 5 games I would buy for Spider-Man and Metal Gear Solid Frame, $70. Otherwise, I just don't buy. Well, yeah, but is that better for the gaming industry that you're playing fewer games? Because I'd argue no. I'd say it's better for the gaming hobby that more players are exposed to a wider variety of games, and they aren't just saying, I'm going to buy these 2 games at $70 and be totally happy with it, and every other game I'm just going to disregard, when those 2 games are a sequel based on a mega popular franchise and a remake. Well, and again, those games might be fantastic and they might be totally worth the money, and I'm not saying they're not, but that's the reason why you've got the confidence in those products, right? That's why you're saying, I'm gonna pay $70 on the for that and being happy about it. So I think that the problem there is it makes people not want to spend any money on games that aren't like big properties or sequels or remakes. And like, that doesn't mean sequels and remakes can't be good, because like a bunch of my favorite games of this year have been sequels and remakes. Tears of the Kingdom being probably my #1, with Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 kind of being tied for #2, and they're both remakes. So I'm not saying that there's no merit to those games at all, but I think that high price points and saying, okay, so I'm going to play 2 video games this year, and that's it. I'm just going to pick these 2 because games are expensive, and I want a physical copy to spend this much on, and I'm not going to play any other games. I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing, unless you're really getting, like, unless your style is also, hey, I'm going to get all the merit I possibly can out of every one of the video games I buy. Like sure, like if you're like, hey, I always get the platinum trophy, I 100% them, I lose months to them, and I love Spider-Man. So like, you know, like, I mean, there's reasons why that I really just don't want to sound like I'm trying to talk you out of how you enjoy engaging with video games. I'm just saying that it's the reasons. There are reasons why I don't necessarily think it's the best way to engage with games. But I mean, again, I totally respect your right to engage with the hobby however you best see fit. You know, it's your business, not mine. All I'm doing is giving you my perspective on it, I suppose.